Hey YouTube, this is Trains and Destinations, and today I'm here to give you all a video on the 2018 edition of the Acer Swift 1. So as far as this laptop goes, this is the 2018 edition. The Swift 1 came out in 2017, and this is the second generation of the Swift 1, and I believe this is still being sold to this day. So what makes this laptop unique is that price-wise it costs under $400. Depending where you look, you can usually get this anywhere from $250 to $350 or slightly more than that, depending where you look, whether you buy it new or used. So right now I'm just going to give you all a little shot around the laptop. Now what makes this laptop unique is that this is a laptop that looks far more expensive than the price would suggest. And first of all, this is made out of metal. The entire laptop is made out of metal. So as you can see, all metal, metal on the back, metal on the sides, all metal. And an all metal laptop, especially at a lower price point, that's pretty much unheard of. Like legit, that is pretty much unheard of. And so it comes in this nice dark gray finish, very MacBook-like. It's almost like it's almost space gray. It's not quite space gray, but it's pretty close to that. It's like a mix. It's like in between the silver and the space gray that you would see on a Mac. So anyway, let's go over the port selection. So the left hand side, right here you have your power port, right here you have your HDMI, USB Type-C port, and then these are your two USB 3.0 ports, so pretty good port selection on the left hand side. And as you can see, this is a pretty thin laptop. It's not super thin, but it is quite thin. It is quite thin, especially from the front. And so that is particularly impressive. And port selection on the right hand side, you have a full-size SD card slot. You have a microphone jack, or headphone jack I should say, and a USB 2.0 port, as well as a Kensington lock. So that's my only little gripe here. It has a USB 2.0 port. I don't know why Acer couldn't have just put on all USB 3s, but that's fine. You know, it is what it is. But as far as the design, it is a little plain, but again, this laptop is made entirely out of metal, and it is relatively well built. There's not much flex in the chassis. Again, it feels solid. As you can see here on the bottom, you have your dual speakers. So they're bottom firing speakers. And as far as the speaker quality, it's okay. It is pretty quiet. The speakers are pretty quiet, but they produce average sound, and they're usable. They are usable, though you'd probably be better off using headphones on this guy. And then let's open it up. So you see, you have a little you have this little thing that comes out to help you open the lid. And when you open the laptop, you're greeted with a relatively clean layout. And so, as you can see, this does have pretty much a chiclet keyboard. There's only about 1.1 millimeters of travel, and so as I zoom out here and bring the camera down, you can see that there is not a lot of travel. That's it. It's about 1.1, 1.2 millimeters of travel. And so if you're the thing is this: if you're used to a keyboard that doesn't have much travel, then you'll be fine. You can adjust this very easily. But if you're used to something, say, a Lenovo ThinkPad, if you're used to a laptop that has a much deeper travel, then you might not get used to this. But at least for me, these keys are very good. They're responsive. They are very, very clicky. They're not mushy at all. And so these keys are very good for what they are. And below the keyboard is the trackpad. And as you can see, this is a pretty damn big trackpad. Almost, you know, one of the more big trackpads you'd see on a Windows laptop. And then overall to the side here, that is your fingerprint sensor, which it's okay. I'd say in my experience with this laptop, this is a review pretty much I'm doing. So in my experience of using this laptop over the last few months, I'd say this works about maybe 60 to 70% of the time. It's good to have, though it's definitely not the most accurate. That's the best way I can say it. The trackpad is very good. It has Windows Precision drivers. Although, as you can see, it is depressed a bit here on the corners. So, here the build quality does show, the slightly lower build quality does show, but it still works, still clicks just fine. And then this here is the display. and underneath your Acer logo you have the Swift right there. So without further ado, let's go ahead and turn it on. And as I turn it on, I'll go through the internal specs. This has the Intel Pentium Silver N5000 processor with 4 GB of RAM and 64 GB of eMMC flash storage. I believe you can also get this with a 128 GB SSD. Though as far as the processor goes, I think the N5000 is the only one you can get with this, but that's okay. And as far as the display, the camera might not do it justice, but this has a 1080p matte IPS display, and it is beautiful. So as you can see on this default Windows image, it is extremely detailed. So if this thing wants to focus, it is very detailed. It looks way better than it does on camera. But anyway, I'm going to go ahead and sign in with the fingerprint sensor. And as you can see, it's very quick. It only took less than a second for this thing to sign in here. Let's see. Again, I do apologize for how the screen looks on the camera, but it's a very nice display. It's definitely a little bit on the duller side, the slightly bluer side, but overall it's a fine display. It gets the job done, and it is very sharp. And as you can see, this does have Windows Precision drivers, the trackpad that is, and the movements are very smooth, very fluidic. And as you can see, the performance is quite good. I have absolutely no complaints. For basic use, this works. For basic use, this works just fine. As you can see, I'm on Microsoft Edge, and browsing through a web page is quick. Let's go to website. As you can see, loading is pretty good. Now, as far as the display goes, actually I do have the night mode on right now, the night light, so I'll turn it off. And there you go, now it looks a bit better. So if it looked a little yellowed before, that's because I had the night light on. Let's lower the brightness. Okay, that looks pretty decent. So as you can see, scrolling is pretty good. I'll go to another website. And as you can see, typing on the keyboard is a nice experience. It's a pretty clicky keyboard. Not a lot of travel, but if you're used to that, then it's fine. So I'm going to go to another website here. And again, it loads just fine. Obviously, if I go to Google, very simple website, it's instantaneous. And so, for simple tasks like browsing the web, checking emails, doing documents, this thing will work perfectly fine. The only area where this thing won't really work is anything else. As you can see, there are no exhaust. There's no exhaust. There's no intakes, and that's because this processor only runs at 1.1 gigahertz. So I'm going to open up a task manager. Oh, lost the focus here. Come on, refocus. There we go. Sort of. There we go. So as you can see, like I said, this does have the Pentium Silver N5000 processor. And as you can see, right out the gate with only one application open, as you can see, it's using up already roughly 63% of the storage, or sorry, memory, 63% of the memory. So this does have 4 gigabytes of RAM, which nowadays is the bare minimum, but it gets the job done. It has Intel UHD 605 graphics, as you can see, 605 graphics, and they're decent. I've played, game-wise, the highest I've been able to play on this thing has been Half-Life 2, although I have to have it at pretty much the lowest settings. 720p is about the best this can do. If you play this, you can play this at 1080, but it's going to be pretty choppy. So this thing is just, it's not meant for gaming. There's no fans. The processor only runs at 1.1 gigahertz, so this is not a gaming laptop. Don't buy this for games. It can work for very older games, so I've also played on this Counter-Strike Condition Zero and the original Half-Life, and they work perfectly fine. But anything newer, even stuff in the mid-2000s, will struggle to play on this. But, that being said, the performance is good.